Okay, recording now. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to tonight's session on business model innovation to support climate change mitigation. Now, that's quite a mouthful, but fret not because we have experts with us tonight who can share with us what mitigation is, what decarbonization is, and how businesses are innovating. Now, to help us navigate the conversation tonight is our moderator, Afiq. So you might be familiar with his face. Can we get Afiq up on the stage as well? Because he was the moderator last month for the session on climate finance, the green future. Now, just to recap his bio, Afiq is currently the lead business counselor and program lead for Innovate Brunei at Shell LifeWire Brunei, and he was a YCL Pro Fellow for 2018 alumni for economic empowerment based in San Diego, California. Afik works closely with key players in the industry on projects related to business development and community building, technology, social enterprises, and creativity. So we're very thankful to have Afik with us here tonight to help facilitate the discussions. And Afik, the floor is yours to introduce the speakers and the session.
All right, thank you very much, Lestrina, and very nice to see everyone once again. I hope all of you are doing very well and safe, and for sure eating very healthy as well. I know we're now entering the endemic phase, and I hope all of you guys and your family as well, and family and friends are taking care of yourselves. So again, just want to say thank you very much to all the committee for the committee of YCL Summit for 2022. It's been very exciting journey, I'm sure, for all of you. It's also a very exciting journey for me to be coming back here. So once again, want to say thank you to the US Embassy and the YCL official, and of course to the team at Big Pagawan. Sorry, yeah. Yeah, and of course to the committee at the YCL Summit as well. So again, I want to see a bit of a reaction from everybody. So I hope you guys can give a quick round of applause to yourself, or give a bit of a heart as well. I want to see a bit of reaction, I think, from everybody. Yeah, great. I can see a bit of that. So thank you very much. So I hope everybody could participate in this, and want to keep it very casual. I want to keep it very enlightening as well, because the topic that we're going to be talking about this evening is definitely going to be a bit technical, but at the same time, technical can be a bit, I'm not sure what are the things that I know, So we're here coming like I would say blank canvas, but at the same time, we have the experts, as Lestrina said earlier just now. So let me quickly introduce everybody. And I know we have the chat box. I hope you guys, if you have any questions, just pop it up in the chat. I'll remind you guys again and again and again, and I'll have opportunity as well for you guys to ask questions, and I'll bring it up later on. So I hope you guys are going to be well entertained this evening. So for this evening, we have two gentlemen. Today we have Edwin. First and foremost, I want to quickly introduce him. Edwin is a professor of meteorology and climatology at the Agency for Assessment and Application of Technology, BPPT Indonesia. He teaches at the University of Indonesia, Bogor Agriculture Institute, and Udana University in Denpasar, Bali. Currently, Professor Aldrin serves as the IPCC WG1 Vice Chair, representing Indonesia in countries in the Southwest Pacific region. Professor Aldrin obtained his PhD in 2003 from Max Planck Institute for Meteorology, Germany. Professor Aldrin also served as the WMO as the co-chair of Commission for Climatology for Expert Team on Institution and Infrastructure Capabilities Group, and of course the WMO co-vice chair, Regional Association Working Group on Climate Services. So yeah, I also want to take this opportunity to also express a bit of his achievement, which I wouldn't say it's massive, I would say. Professor Aldrin has already published 32 peer-reviewed international scientific publications, 46 national peer-reviewed publications, and 26 books or book chapters. We works mainly on global and regional climate issue, including climate changes, and actively becoming speakers for climate change sciences. And last but not least, of course, Professor Aldrin is active in promoting climate change science nationally and internationally as part of IPCC outreach program in South Asia and Southeast Asia. So this is first and foremost our first speaker. I will introduce our second speaker after this. So I'm gonna welcome first and foremost Dr. Edwin. I am I'm gonna quickly introduce, of course, our second speaker as well. But we're gonna have a bit of a first presentation from Dr. Edwin first. But here, first and foremost, we also have Dr. Paul West, is an ecologist developing science-based solutions for sustaining a healthy planet for people and nature. A special projects and director, Paul is assessing how climate solutions can create win-win solutions and of course trade-offs for conserving biodiversity, creating a sustainable food system and many other aspects of planetary health and human well-being. So Paul joined Project Drawdown from the University of Minnesota, where he maintains an appointment. His research has focused on improving both global food security and the environment, and is published in leading science journals, including Nature Science and Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, as well as appeared in National Geographic, amazing stuff, museum exhibits, and major media outlets. Last but not least, of course, Paul has given a keynote addresses academic and practitioner events all around the world. So let's give them, before we have them start to speak and share their knowledge and thoughts and wisdom to us, let's give them a quick round of applause. Yeah. All right, so I can see a bit of that. And once again, thank you very much, gentlemen, for being here. I am gonna give the focus and first to Dr. Evan. Aldrian, take it away.
Okay, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, everyone watching for me. And then my slide title is Decarbonization is a mitigation option. I myself working for the Professor of Meteorology and Climatology for Agency for Research and Innovation in Jakarta. I also work for the IPCC, International Panel on Climate Change, working as Working Group 1 Vice Chair. Okay, thank you for coming, and then I will start my presentation with this slide. So this is taken from the book, The Economic of Climate Change. So if you're thinking about your population and welfare of the world, and then compare with the emission, they will go along together. So the emission and the welfare is going along together. So this is our problem. The future of climate system and depend on our ability to decouple future emission or decarbonize from the two factors, population and economic growth. We want to achieve higher economic growth, but without the spending too much on the emission. So as you know that there's a problem of population and technology. Right now, the population of the world is almost reaching 8 billion people, almost. It is 7 billion people, 950 something, the number of the people. So in the book of the Al Gore, the one former Vice President of the United States who won the Nobel Peace Prize with IPCC in 2007, he wrote that the main cause of the climate change is the population and technology as the main source. So the rapid population from the Homo sapien, we call it Homo sapien for the people, caused the increase of natural greenhouse gases such as water vapor due to respiration. So the human population also increased the content of other greenhouse gases because they need consumption and energy. So the industrialization and the advance of technology require inevitable large energy source and the large accumulation of industrial waste to the environment. So almost all primary industrial processes cannot rid of the energy from this kind of supply. This is mostly the source of energy is from fossil fuel. This is the main cause of the fossil fuel for the energy. So in the morning, you may eat something like rice, bread, noodle, or cassava. So they are all carbohydrate. Everybody eat carbohydrate. So can you see the carbon structure there? This is carbohydrate. And the fat and food process that we eat every day is a carbon chain. So for example, there's a human body from the genetic scale to large structure, from hair to tooth, contain carbon compound. Cooking oil comprised of carbon chain. And the most valuable mineral, it is a pure carbon or the diamond. This is women really like it. Most energy from consumption, it is carbohydrate. But for our car, we use a different carbon. It is hydrocarbon. It is the opposite side of the carbohydrate that we eat. For the car, for the transportation, we use hydrocarbon. This is from gasoline. For the factory, we use coal and many others. So carbon really you colorize our earth and the earth. Why? Because carbon has a strong and neutral bond with other chemical compounds. So this is the story that we are the carbon species. So carbon from the earth crust to the atmosphere. So the accumulation of greenhouse gases is mostly due to the use of energy and the land use and cover change. This is the most story. It is from the energy of or the land use and cover change. So carbon is not original from the atmosphere. It is from the earth crust, and then we explore, we use it as energy and dump it in the atmosphere. We dump the carbon that are mostly the CO2 gas and a little CO. Unfortunately, CO2 is a greenhouse gas. The accumulation of CO2 in the atmosphere will eventually change the atmosphere composition. Then will give a climate feedback, then the impact of the climate change. So biofuel plant does not emit greenhouse gases because they acquire carbon from their respiration in the atmosphere. So there is no added carbon content. In that way, we need to decarbonize our economy. This is as the main talk for me is decarbonize the economy. This is our focus today. Okay. So carbon will stay in the atmosphere and add energy to the atmosphere. Atmosphere as the last commodity after land and water. So 1 glass of water right now it must cost more than the 1 glass of gasoline. But right now, because of the war in Ukraine, the gasoline price is going up. Assumption that atmosphere as the last water resource or waste resource, and self-recycle capability is no longer true. Atmosphere cannot recycle itself. And then already been saturated with pollution that impact of the climate change. Nowadays, humans already treat atmosphere as the mean to have a clean atmosphere, as the part of a carbon trading. So we already trading the carbon in the atmosphere by Kyoto Protocol, and right now we have Paris Agreement. So we need to discuss carbon trade incentive or carbon or the clean air tax. So this is what the future that we face. So I want to put the 3 stages of the humanity in the case of technology. So period before industrialization was the period of God-created nature, when human receive or harvest or nurture the grace from nature or God. The industrialization period was called as the period of man-made nature. They think they can power the nature. People can go from one place to another place by plane, by train, by ship. The technology to advance during this crashed the face man to nature, because the product is not in line with how nature works. So human must innovate to save themselves to the extinction due to this crash. The future period will be called the period of God engineered nature, when technology that we make is in line with the nature, how the nature works, maybe how the plant work, how the ant work, how the animal work, and so on like that. The future period is the period for bioengineering, green technology, for transportation and for energy, and recycle period. This is the future that we face. So recent changes in the climate are widespread, rapid, and intensifying, and unprecedented in thousands of years. This is what IPCC calls. Unless there are immediate, rapid, and large-scale reduction in greenhouse gas emission or decarbonization, limit atmospheric emission to 1.5 degree will be beyond reach. Our model scenario will pass beyond 1.5 degree by 2042. This is the projection. It is undisputable that human activity are causing the climate change, making extreme climate events, including heat wave, heavy rain, and drought, and more frequent and severe heat extreme. So climate change is already affecting every region on the earth in multiple ways. The changes we are experiencing today will increase with further warming. That's why we have to do decarbonization. However, some changes could be slow and other could be stopped by limiting warming. In 2018, IPCC special report on 1.5 degree Celsius mentioned that the whole world intentionally internationally national determined contribution, or the voluntary contribution, only cover 1/3 of the required goal to meet the 1.5 degree Celsius target. So we need to do more. Right now, in 2022, we have around 1.2 degree above the industrial time, and we want to reach 1.5 maximum. This is what we want to have, maximum. Our global scenario model mentioned that we will pass 1.5 degree by 2041. This is 10 years ahead that has been projected before, around 2052 in the special report. This is what IPCC scientists say. So special report in the 2018 also mentioned that the whole intentionally national determined contribution only cover 1/3 of the required mitigation. So we have to do more. We have to carbonate more on the economy, especially the energy and the land use, land cover change. So the world needs more aggressive, intentionally national determined contribution by each country. So each country must be contribute more and more. So we need more. We need monitoring and evaluation through global stocktake by the UNFCCC. This is the UN action right now. The global stocktake will measure the necessity of ongoing intentionally national determined contribution. I think this is all my message today to you, that we need to do more, maybe 2 or 3 times more that we promise. So the voluntary contribution that we make for mitigation action does not enough. Right now, you hear that global emission, zero emission. Zero emission doesn't mean that we don't have development at all. So we have still development, but we balance that we emit as emission and then we absorb as emission. This is what we plan to do by 2050. Some country want to do it by 2050. Some country want to do it by 2060, and some other will do it in 2070. So this is what we need to do decarbonization of our economy. So for example, for the energy sector, we want to do much more on the decarbonization. Maybe we want to introduce type of energy that is safe for emission. That is, we don't want every country to become like Bhutan or something, because people like in Bhutan, they are reaching the positive, negative emission because they have too much forest in their land cover. But we want to reach decarbonization using other mean possible. Maybe we do it by energy sector, other than land use, land cover change, and so on like this. But we can do it. We can do it together. I think we can do it as part of our contribution for keeping the temperature below 1.5 degrees Celsius. Okay, thank you very much for your attention. Again, you can follow me in my Facebook or maybe Twitter or YouTube. You can follow my publication. And I'm sorry if my presentation is too technical for you, but this is the main reason that we must keep socializing of decarbonization by IPCC and so on. Thank you very much. Again, I thank you. Thank you very much. Good evening.
Thank you very much, Evan. And this is very exciting. All of these knowledge and information, I hope you guys took note a bit about it. Reminds me again, going back to uni, like having to learn a bit about these. I'm like, okay, there's so many things that we got to do and so many things that we got to start working on. So I think just quite a few points that Edwin have shared earlier just now. The main sources of changes are, sorry, I think there was a bit of a noise. Basically, main sources of changes are basically rapid development of population and technology, and there is a need that we need to do more. And how do we do more? There's also ways for us to mitigate this, and I think this is something for Edwin to share a bit later on. So I'm gonna hold you a little bit on that part. I would say that there's a few keywords that we were talking about that Edwin was mentioning just now, such as zero emission. So think about it. What does it mean? I know some of you guys might know this already, but for those that are still very new to this, again, this is a very good opportunity for us to learn and relearn what is it that we are gonna talk about on decarbonization. So quite a few things here. I'm gonna share a bit about quite a number of takeaways there, but let's focus back. Let's give the focus and spotlight to our next speaker. I introduced him just now. I know there are some questions in the chat box just now, but I'm going to hold you guys a little bit on that. So without further ado, I'd like to quickly introduce Paul. Would you like to take this away? Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'm glad to be here today. I appreciate the opportunity. What I'll be sharing here is a little bit, it builds on what Professor Edwin said, but what I will focus a little bit more on is on solutions, because what we see in the USA, but certainly around the world, is that when individuals are thinking about what is the, well, if you think about climate change, what are you thinking about? And most people think like, well, what is the impact? How is it going to affect me? Well, what is causing the problem? Is it electricity? Is it cars? Is it deforestation? But a very small number of people are thinking about what is possible. So there's certainly a lot of opportunities to stop the increase in greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, and that what we as an organization are trying to do more is to shift a conversation away from that our situation is dire and it's too big and we can't do anything about it, to shift the overall narrative to it's possible, and here's what we need to do. So it's just not letting me advance here. Sorry about that. Okay, so what I want to hit home on next is, as you've heard from the name of our organization is our Project Drawdown. And when we talk about drawdown, we are talking about a point in time at which our levels of greenhouse gases are not increasing and are starting to decrease the amount that are in the atmosphere. So at the organization, our mission is to reach that point of drawdown as quickly, safely, and equitably as possible. Professor Edvin had shared a bit about this, and in order to solve a problem, we have to know what is the source of the problem. And what we often think of, which is true, but is a lot of the emissions are coming from how we are producing electricity. So if it is coal and natural gas or biomass, either wood or dung, that has an impact on the climate. We also think about all the cars that are on the planet, but it's important to note, though, that electricity is, a quarter of all of the emissions, but the next biggest one, as Professor Edvin said, is how we use land, and when we are clearing land, either for timber products or agriculture, that all of the carbon that is stored in the trees or in the soil is released up into the atmosphere and has the same amount of impact on the planet as all of the electricity that is produced. So these are just some other sources here. So what I'll be showing here is that in order to address the problem is that we need a whole range of solutions that are addressing each source of the emissions. So a little bit of a background on how this works is that we have our atmosphere, the air, and that chart that I just showed a minute ago, here's a different version of it, that there are a number of sources that end up in the atmosphere in the form of carbon dioxide or methane or refrigerants and others that have an impact on warming our atmosphere. And then what we also see is about 40% or so of what ends up in the atmosphere is pulled out of the atmosphere by our forests, agricultural lands, and grasslands and wetlands, as well as the ocean itself. However, a good fraction of what is emitted into the atmosphere stays into the atmosphere. And in order to limit the amount of warming on the planet, that amount that is going up into the atmosphere has to reach a point of zero, meaning that everything that is moving up into the atmosphere has to be pulled back down, either in the form of land, oceans, or possibly engineering solutions in the future. So a little bit more on solutions. What our organization has done is identified a whole suite of solutions across all of the sources of emissions. And what we focus on is those that are currently available, are financially viable, that it has a proven impact, and that we have enough information to actually estimate the amount of impact if it is implemented at a large scale around the world. A lot of this analysis was in a book initially. It's published around the world in, I think, 18 languages or so, or 20, something like that. And we have been doing updates on our science as well. So what I'm going to show now is a series of solutions. This is a small set, but are examples of what we can do as individuals or advocate for a change in our communities or our countries. So when you look at electricity, there are a lot of opportunities to shift away from making our electricity from coal and diesel and biomass and natural gas, such as in the form of wind or solar. And the solar is certainly at a large scale for a community, as well as opportunities at a small scale for an individual house. Agriculture, as we've mentioned, has an impact on our climate at about the scale of all the, or a quarter of all of the impact. So when we're thinking about solutions there, some of the biggest ones are the types of food that we are eating. So if you're eating more fruits and vegetables and leafy greens and healthy grains, not only is it good for your body, but it decreases the impact on the environment, because a lot of livestock, especially beef, has an impact on our climate, because as the animals are eating either on the rangelands or eating a lot of feed, they are eating it and burping out methane, which has a warming effect on our climate. Another big opportunity with our food and what we eat is that about a third of everything that is produced on the fields it doesn't end up on the plate. So it's either is lost or wasted, either on the field, in storage or transportation, our refrigerators, or in restaurants. So by a shift in what we're eating and reducing the amount that is wasted, we can have a huge impact on the climate in a positive way. Another big one, Professor Edvin had hit on this a lot, is that most of the land that is being cleared now for agriculture is largely occurring in the tropics. So in South America, it's mainly for soybeans and cattle. And in Southeast Asia, where you all are at, is more for oil palm and rubber. And while at a local scale, it might seem like, well, it's a number of trees here or forest here or forest there. But if you add all of that up, the amount of emissions from deforestation in the tropics alone, if it were a country, it would be number 3 on the list. So it's China, USA, and deforestation. And in terms of magnitude of that impact, the impact of food waste also has a similar amount. So what we eat and what we are wasting and where it's grown and how it's grown has a tremendous amount of impact on our climate. Also, how we are growing our food has an impact as well. So as a lot of rice is produced and flooded, it emits a lot of methane, or like a stinky gas that you are smelling, say, out in the farm fields. So what a number of scientists are doing, which we're seeing here, is how can water be managed in rice fields so that that what's happening in the soil is not emitting as much methane into the atmosphere. When we look at where we all live and work, there are a lot of opportunities. There are hundreds of millions of people, or a billion, that around the world that are using like a set of cook stoves that are, with charcoal or wood or dung. And that certainly has a big impact on health, but it also has a big impact on climate. So as all of the black carbon or ash is emitted, it ends up in people's lungs, and largely in women and children, in the households. But then as it enters into the atmosphere, it warms our climates as well, because it's black, and like a black t-shirt like I have on, if you are out in the sun, it absorbs a lot more of the sun's energy than, say, a white t-shirt or snow, in the case of the ash that ends up on the mountains. Another big thing is that how we are cooling our areas has a big impact too. So there are a number of newer opportunities for cooling areas much more efficiently, both in terms of the amount of electricity that's used, as well as the chemicals that are in a air conditioner, that the types that are used will have a much less impact or no impact on the climate, whereas what is commonly in use today, its impact on warming is several thousand times as strong as emitting carbon dioxide. So it's only a small amount, but that small amount is manageable, and it has a large impact if it is not managed. Also, in terms of transportation, having more of a shift toward public transportation, electric trains in this example here, or in our cities, is having them be more walkable and bikeable. Another big opportunity, and this is a win-win for our children around the world, is that there is a strong link that is between education and healthcare, especially of women and girls, and impact on our climate. And we are fortunate in our world is that a number of emerging leaders, like all of you on the call, are seeing more of a sense of urgency and demanding action. And what we aim to do as an organization is to help provide information on, yes, it's urgent. Yes, I want to act now. What do I do? And we aim to help share that information of what's possible. And a few more slides here is that if we manage our forests in ways, or are protecting them, they are able to absorb more of the carbon dioxide that is in the atmosphere. And in our oceans as well, is that as we are restoring mangroves and other types of coastal wetlands, they absorb a tremendous amount of carbon out of the atmosphere and store it both in the trees as well as in the soils, or sandy soils in the coastal areas. Now there seems to be, though, a debate of, well, why should we have a focus on climate when there are hundreds of millions of people around the world that are hungry and poor, or that we're losing a lot of species of plants and animals and habitats? Why do this and not something else? Our organization had recently done an analysis, and that highlights that, well, it doesn't have to be, do I work on this or do I work on that? That there are many opportunities to have development in a way that is good for the climate as well as good for people. So we looked at a whole range of solutions, and there are a number of groups, whether it's how our food is produced or protecting nature, or how we are cooking our food. A lot of what you see here on the slide are examples that I shared earlier. So what we find is that when you look at those, what we have on the left is those like a group of strategies, and the bubbles are the amount of impact on climate in a positive way. And then what we see on the right is that, well, if you work on, say, agriculture, which is in green, that has a positive outcome on, say, food and income and water, as well as other impacts on health inequality, education. So if you are implementing a number of strategies that are good for climate on agricultural lands, it generally also is associated with a higher amount of food that is grown on those lands, which then it translates to the amount of income that a farmer is able to make, which then allows additional money for access, say, to a well, or money for education, and examples like that. What we also see is there are a tremendous amount of examples of climate solutions in business. And what people mainly are talking about now is how can a business reduce its impact on climate? And that normally looks like or sounds like, how can we bring our emissions into the atmosphere down to zero? And while that's important, really to be a leader in climate change as a business, and we have a report on this, which I'll share in the chat, is that in order to be a leader, certainly there needs to be an emphasis on reducing emissions, but a lot of businesses have the ability to affect change within a community, across a sector, across a country. Like certainly in the US, a number of companies arguably have more influence on policy in the country than our politicians do. So what they are advocating for and lobbying for can have a tremendous amount of impact. So not only doing good as individuals and companies, but using like a superpower to also influence change across a supply chain or at a country level. Now, a few last slides here is that as individuals or communities, that in order to reach a point of drawdown, there are a lot of opportunities that I had shared here for us to bring our emissions down on the left, all the way down to either a point of zero or a small amount that then is offset or soaked up by our lands and oceans. And sort of like a little plan is that, you know, all of us are able to make a change in our own lives. It's also important to share like what we are doing with our friends, our neighbors, our communities. But we as individuals can only do so much. So another point is to advocate for a broader change in our communities or countries or at a larger scale. So with that, I will end, and I look forward to our questions here.
Thank you very much, Paul. And that is a very exciting a lot of insights there that we could actually take on for this evening. But just want to quickly say once again, thank you very much to both of the speakers for sharing your insights. Before we start going to a bit of a Q&A and a bit of a special question for me, actually to Paul, what time is it there right now?
It's in the morning, and it's 7 o'clock in the morning. So it's still early, but I have a little bit of coffee and I'm fine.
Great,
Thanks
good,
for
great.
asking. Yeah.
No problem. Joe, so I want everybody to quickly give a quick round of applause, I think, to Paul for powering it through for us this, morning, essentially. I know for us, we're on the other side of the world and it's evening for most of us, but yeah, thank you very much, Paul, for being here with us. And at that early time in the morning as well. So yeah, I also want to browse a bit of some questions. Actually, I know I have my own sets of questions I have wanted to ask the speakers here, but I want to browse through the chat a little bit. And I know there were quite a few questions. I think I want to quickly go up on the chat box. Let me see. There is a question. Okay, so there's one question. Okay, so the question is the way we live harm our Mother Earth? This is from Noon from Thailand. So yeah, I hope this is I hope any of the speakers, if you guys want to answer this question, go for it. But I also want to give a bit of some comments. I think there's quite a few of those. So sorry, quite a few of those shared by some of the other participants here as well. From Lara from Philippines. Historically, we contributed less to current emissions, but because we have high speed of development, we have high emissions too. How important is decarbonization of Southeast Asia in the trajectory towards 1.5? So I think perhaps, Edwin, I'd like to perhaps give this opportunity. What are your thoughts on this? I think if we were to, we put a question here. What are the things that we could start to look into when we talk about decarbonization? Yeah.
Yeah, I think people from Southeast Asia, it is the most populated region of the world between China and India. I think we must accept this. So we must do carbonization as soon as possible. I think we can change the movement of the world through this important region. So the change of carbonization of economy doesn't mean that we stop economy, but give different kind of opportunities to people to work from the other side. So it is not losing opportunity, but creating a new job. So Paul has mentioned a lot of energy from the wind power, solar power, and so on like that. So for example, the country in the Southeast Asia, a lot of energy possible from the, for example, geothermal and for the ocean energy that are possible. So we just need to shift from the current traditional fossil fuel to the new way of harvesting energy from the renewable energy. I think it is possible. I think it is possible, and then we have to do it in the most populated region of the world. So Southeast Asia, it is between China and India. We must accept that. So we hold the key for the changing of the world. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Edwin. And that's a very good insight. And basically, change definitely has to come from us. But of course, it's not a one-man show. Everyone got to contribute, and everyone got to play their part as well. In this case, from different sectors, different industries, different fields. Now, I want to browse through the chat a little bit, and I think there was a bit of a comment here. So Yunisa, hi there. I also want to connect with Jara. From the Philippines. Also, it's a question. I think I hope, Paul, I'm gonna point this to you. So here the thoughts is that livestock industry would be the first cause of greenhouse emission. And instead of condemning beef, why don't we encourage regenerative farming models? It's been proven that regenerative cow farms actually improve the land turn them into carbon sinks. Now, I think in this case, Paul, I think you've shared a bit about the change and basically how we live our life also could make an impact to the environment. So perhaps you have a bit of comments here. What are your thoughts on it?
Yes, and I'm moving around here because our sun is coming up and it happens to be hitting me right in the face. So I apologize for that. I'm not just extra nervous or something. But yes, what we eat and how it is grown, as I mentioned, has a tremendous amount of effect on our climate. And it's also something that we as individuals have a lot of influence over. So that's very important. As someone had mentioned in the comments, excellent point is that how a lot of cattle is managed can have a positive impact on the climate, or at least a smaller impact in a negative way. So there are examples of changing how cattle is raised on the land that can have a smaller impact. However, many of the studies that have been done are measured in a way that the impact of a cow, say, is measured in a different way or at a different time of its life than the impact on the soils. So it doesn't do like a full accounting. And then there's also this issue of that what we say at Project Drawdown is that time is more important than technology, or time and tech. So that, but in this case, the issue of time is more that the amount of carbon in the soil slowly is building up over time. Whereas when a cow is eating and it burps out methane, whether it's on a pasture or it's in a barn, a small amount of methane has like, or the same amount of methane has 40 times the impact of carbon dioxide. And most of that happens in the first 9 or 11 years. So inside of a decade, it has a very large impact on the climate. So even small changes in the amount of beef that we eat can have a noticeable impact in the atmosphere inside of a decade. So it's really like a health win. It's also a win for our climate. And for like encouraging news, it's positive because we can see a change inside of a decade. So it's encouraging. I hope that helps. And if it's not enough information, I'm on LinkedIn and Twitter, and I'm happy to share more.
Thank you very much, Paul, and that's a very good insight as well. Again, it also sometimes, I mean, it definitely goes down to how we practice on our day-to-day as well. And again, small change is all definitely going to be contributing to, of course, a bigger change. Now, I want to give this opportunity. Actually, I see the chat box is going very active. So it means that everyone's very active this evening and everyone's out to chat and voice out. So I want to give this opportunity before I go through, and I mean, I have a lot of questions. I have a set of questions, but again, this evening is for everybody right here in this on this conference. So I want to allow anyone who wants to unmute your mic and pose a question. So how you guys are gonna do this is, hi Edwin, or maybe hi Paul, I have a question for you, and pose the question. So I'm going to give this opportunity to anyone right here. I see from the Philippines, Laura, you wanted to voice out? Let's go for it.
Hi. My question is for Paul with regards to the project drawdown. So I'm just curious about family planning as one of the top solutions because higher income countries with lower population and birth rate have higher emissions. So how come family planning in lower income countries is among the top solutions? So maybe just a background on, I don't know, the data about it, on why it's on the top list. Thanks.
Yes. Well, a few things is with our recent analysis, it is no longer like at the top of the list, but that's a small point that is relative to what you're saying. So you make an excellent point is that where most of the emissions are happening is in places like in US, but as well as India and China. And there the emissions are much higher. And the income in many cases is higher, and yet the people that experience most of the impact from our climate change, both now and into the future, are generally in areas where there is a much smaller contribution to the overall problem. So the issue of family planning and education is, we don't really see that, although it sounds like it, as a climate solution. What we advocate for is that education and family planning is a human right, and that one of the outcomes is impact on climate. But while other organizations may advocate for this, our organization is certainly not about population control. So if it does seem that way and you have feedback on ways that you think we are saying it inappropriately, I'd love to hear that. Ideas on changes, either in the chat or of course as a follow-up. I'm happy to help and point you to others on our team who are experts in family planning and universal education.
All right, thank you very much, Paul, and I hope that answers your question, Laura. So thank you once again for posing the question. All right, I see quite a few hands raised up as well. I just want to quickly remind everybody, I hope you guys can put your names actually, so I could actually just pose the question to you, yeah, and of course where you're from. You can also do a bit of a quick introduction as well. You know, we want to hear where you guys are from as well, all right? And at least, you know, let's lighten it up a little bit. Okay, so yeah, I think from Thailand we have Fontip. So would you like to start your question? Go for it.
Okay, so thank you so much for both speakers. So I have some questions regarding on the business model innovation. So I think that this is a really important issue, but somehow I think the government and also like the business sector may don't see that much important of this. So I wonder that in both of your opinion, how could we engage on the stakeholders, especially for maybe the policymakers and the private sector, to see important of how we can support on this kind of innovation model regarding the agenda. Thank you.
All right, perhaps I think this time around, perhaps we could have Edwin. Would you like to answer this question?
Yeah, I think we do it small or big. I think this is a part of our contribution. So IPCC in the view that we're doing as soon as possible we get, because this is the only planet that we live in. Everybody lives on the same planet. We don't have the backup. We don't have the another planet to surf in or to harvest. So I think the more the faster we do it, I think the way we do it on the mitigation. So mitigation is not the process of course this is a very long process, but as soon as we do it, I think we can end up with the result later on faster enough. So I think as simple and as small our contribution, that is how we do it on the climate. So the carbonization we must start right now. So this is not an option. This is not, the more you wait, the more expensive the mitigation option is. So this is the more expensive, and then the more severe weather or climate that we receive. So this is not an option and not a choice. We have to do it right now, and then starting today. This is the message that we face by the scientists. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Edwin, and of course, Phonte from Thailand as well. I see Paul. You want to add a little bit more?
Yeah, I just want to add there. So I really appreciate that question and Professor Edwin's response. The only thing I would like to add too to that is that when we think about innovation, oftentimes we are thinking about what might be available in the future, like a new technology. And what I encourage everyone, certainly on the call here, but anyone who I talk to and will listen, I guess, is that we already have a lot of solutions on hand. So maybe we should look at innovation more in terms of like, how do we implement these ideas more effectively or more efficiently? Because, you know, we know, say, that food waste is it has a big impact on the climate. We know that deforestation has a big impact on the climate, and yet the rate of adoption or changes in those impacts is quite slow. So there is a lot of opportunity for innovation for really all of our solutions that are already at hand. And that innovation, it can either come in terms of efficiency or cost or the rate at which they are adopted. And then another excellent point in the question or comment is that it really takes a combination of public and private funding and innovation.
All right, thank you very much, Paul. And I think that's a very good point as well to highlight innovation as one of the important factors to consider. And I think, Edwin, you've also highlighted as well earlier on that the change got to start. It is highly emphasized. And I think it definitely resonates with what Paul has mentioned earlier just now. I think his first slide was about 44% outcomes, 18% causes, deforestation, and 3% of solutions. So again, all of these numbers aren't just numbers. These are real statistics that we should start to look into as well. So thank you very much, and I hope it answers your question. Yeah, from Thailand, right? All right, cool. Thank you very much for that. I also see Jara, I think you've been raising your hand a little bit right there. Would you like to pose a question?
Yeah, hi. My question is for Professor Edwin. You were talking about what we have to do with the environment is something that's God engineered. And I completely agree with you on that. But what are your suggestions on how we can do it, especially when it comes to agriculture? Because food shortages are coming and we're feeling it right now. And at the same time, we have to take care of the environment and not really just extract a lot from the soil and from the earth. So what are your recommendations on how we can do this?
Oh, yeah, this is a very tough question. I know that right now the world entering the period of higher food price. Even in my country, it is happening right now. It is not permanent. Sometimes it is periodically and something sometimes very high. So we must introduce a new intensification or in the way we do agriculture. I think for me, I think the world is enough for everybody to fit in, everybody to have food. Everyone is enough for everybody. Right now, we are in the period right now to ask whether we need to. I don't propose for people to stop having child, having food, and having development at all. But I must support that we can do it wisely. I believe the technology can help us on this. but maybe the technology right now it is still very expensive because of the capitalism. So, but I believe that enough food for everyone. That I don't support the we stop eating beef or any other food that we supposed to eat. But I think we have to do it wisely. I think so. We have to handle manage how we eat food wisely. This is my suggestion. Thank you very much.
I'm also extending the question to Paul.
Yes, Paul.
Yes. Sorry, I was responding to that in the chat as well. So if I could just get
Okay,
a small version of the question again, I
all
appreciate that.
right. So considering the food shortages that we're having, how do you propose we actually balance out food production without being extractive and just taken out from the environment?
Right, right. Okay. Excellent question. And I think in terms of how do we balance out either a shortage or a need for more food in the future? One of the biggest opportunities is in reducing how much of our food is wasted. So there's already a tremendous amount of opportunity there. As I mentioned earlier, about a third or more of all the food that's produced, it doesn't end up on the plate. So there alone is a big opportunity. And then also in terms of extractive uses, there are ways of growing our food that can be done in a way that it's I don't know what you call it, but it heals or it regenerates our soils from all of the extraction and damage over time. As someone earlier had mentioned, is that the way we raise our cattle or rice or fruits and vegetables, it can have a positive or a healing effect on the land, which is good for our food security in the long run. And it has a benefit for our climate as well. So again, the issues on waste is the biggest opportunity, I think. And then two, how our food is grown. And then a third issue is getting back to our diets. While it's not this way everywhere in the world, but certainly like in the US and increasingly in Brazil and in India and China, is that a lot of the animals that we are raising eat a lot of feed that is grown on the fields. So for example, where I live is mostly is maize and soybeans. However, almost all of that, it doesn't feed people. It feeds our cows and cars in the U.S. and hogs in China, and it's shipped elsewhere around the world. And that, as a whole, like a third of all the calories that are produced on the croplands are used as animal feed as well. So in summary, the food waste, how we are growing our food, and a shift in your diet. And as Edwin had said, certainly we're not advocating, or I'm not, that we don't eat any meat. And in many parts of the world, there's such a lack of protein that an additional amount of eggs or poultry or goat or even beef is a important need for a lot of people. where I live and a lot of Europe and Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay, there is not a shortage of meat.
All right, thank you very much, Paul. I hope that answers your question, Chara, and thank you very much once again for the questions and of course to both of the speakers. I see earlier I saw someone who was raising their hand. Their name somehow has appeared as iPhone X something. I'm not too sure. I don't know if, yeah, I think you might need to change a bit of your title on that. On the Zoom there, but I want to give this opportunity as well. Right, yeah, okay, so okay, I see one more hands rising from Vietnam. Tien, would you like to ask a question to any of the speakers? Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Actually, iPhone in mind because I'm on the car, so with my iPhone. So I have a quick question. In your presentation, I see that the contribution for the climate change between the industrial and the electricity production is not so different. So I am wondering whether any deeper started to show that how many percent of the electricity contribute for the industrial, because so that I understand that more of the electricity is for industrial development, right? So I think that the percentage of the industrial much more higher than the electricity production. Is my question clear?
Yep. Thank you very much for the question, and I believe this question, Edwin, would you like to answer this?
Maybe Paul could answer better.
Okay, no problem. Paul, would you like to take on this question?
Sure, I'll try here. Yeah, that's a great question, and it quickly it dives into a lot of the nuances in terms of accounting. So the way the emissions are tracked in the IPCC is that the electricity production is tracked in a different way than electricity and energy in industry. So there is this kind of overall category of energy, which then is tracked in terms of, well, how much of that is for electricity, how much is it for industry, our buildings, and transportation. So the reason that it's tracked that way, even though as a whole, it's a lot more than if you're just looking at electricity, but having it separated by a number of sectors allows us to understand more about is the source or use of fossil fuels like oil and gas and coal, is that more for electricity or is it for industry? So that's the reason it seems smaller. So yeah, so energy use as a whole is higher, but it's tracked in smaller fractions of that for us to kind of understand what is the source of the problem and ways of addressing it. Is that addressing what you were asking, or a great point that you had?
Right.
Yes, thank you. It's clear. And I have another question. Did your study look for the difference between the how much the contribution between the region or the continent? Like, let's say how to compare between the Europe country and Asia country, for example, in terms of the contribution for the climate change. Over.
I'll let Edwin answer that. If not, I can help too, but it's your turn.
Yeah, maybe the contribution right now it is shifting because previously Europe and United States holding the race. So maybe right now the position by East Asian country, the China and also Southeast Asian country is getting more predominant in the emission for the climate change. So China, of course, a lot of industry and a lot of energy for people, and also a lot of food production for the Southeast Asian country right now because there are many new industry in the area and so on. So right now people still confusing because right now is the Southeast Asian country, like many countries like Indonesia and Malaysia, they cutting trees. So this create a new problem like forest fire and land clearance. This is coming dominate the export of greenhouse gases. So this is maybe answering some of the question before. If you have a stock of land piece, will you use the land piece for the food or the energy for your car? That is the question, the biggest question. I think people very difficult to answer. But I think this is also the cause of shifting of the emission for some country. It's also true for a country like in China and Southeast Asia. Right now, people in China uh, they can plant and harvest palm oil for the climate in China. This is quite dangerous for the economy and also the climate change. So because we cannot grow palm oil everywhere, so this kind of situation is maybe difficult for managing the mitigation of climate change in the future. I think that is one some of the thing that may be answer of your question. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Edwin, and of course, thank you very much, Ken, for the question. I hope you're staying safe. I hope you're not on the road driving, and taking on the call. I hope, yeah, basically just stay safe, right? So yeah, once again, thank you very much, everybody, for all of the questions, and we're just a few more minutes left together with the speakers. So I just wanna give. I want to point out a few questions from the chat box. Yeah, so I've given a lot of opportunities for everybody. But of course, if you guys want to reach out, the speakers, you guys can definitely do that as well. I believe they've shared, and of course, you guys can get it from the committee as well on their contacts and outreach on this part. But there's a very important question here. I believe this was posed by Nalindra. The question is about how do we implement available solutions more effectively, efficiently, basically echoing on this mindset of innovation. We were talking about basically all of these concepts, right? And well, what are the things that we can do? We talk about decarbonization and how does it affect the things around us, and of course, the future. Even Edwin was mentioning about, I believe, God created nature, man-made nature, and future period, and things like that. So I want to keep it very simple. What does innovation mean in the field of decarbonization, and how we could make it much more effective and efficient? I want to pose this question very short and precise for both of the speakers, Edwin and Paul, if you guys could give a bit of one or two lines basically on this part. So give it some thought. Thank you.
So sorry, you should start. Oh, wait.
All right, Edwin, I think would you like to start first? What are your thoughts on innovation in the field of decarbonization, and how could we make it more efficient and effective? Thank you.
Yeah, because like I put in my slide, previously during my grandparents or our parents period, the land is free, the water is free, and the air is free. Right now, even the air is not free because we have to trade between one community to the other, not because between me and you, but from not be, from me come to the market and buy air, but the community do it for us. So there must be a way to for us to uh, uh, make the use of mitigation action with, for example, technology. We can we can we can utilize technology more. I think the technology is available for many of our resources. For example, for our energy, for our transportation, for our building, for our eating habit, and the way that we use for we product. I think we must use technology. Technology is possible to us for to make better life without emitting gas or emitting greenhouse gases. I think it is available, just up to us right now to make it much more available to people. So people not in the one country, but people from everywhere. Because the problem of climate change is for everyone. It is common but differentiated responsibility. This is the philosophy of climate change. Common but differentiated responsibility. So it is happening to everyone. So everyone must contribute to our mitigation action. So no one can be left behind in this mitigation action. So everybody must be out and then doing something for mitigation. So in that way, we must use the technology to overcome and find the solution for our problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Edwin. So basically, the technology is the solution, and of course, looking towards mitigation of decarbonization in this case. Yeah, and thank you very much for that thought. I want to give this back to Paul. What are your thoughts on this? In short, what are your final thoughts on this part? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Well, it's to echo a number of the comments there, and things I shared before. But I think a lot of the innovation opportunities are in terms of how do we implement these solutions more effectively. In some cases, it's about additional funding. So if there are opportunities for incentives from a national government in combination with private funds and businesses to accelerate the implementation. There also has to be a demand for these activities from all of us as individuals. So certainly where a lot of the funding would come from in those examples that I shared are more in the wealthier nations or middle income. But where most of the impact now and likely in the future is in lower income countries. So some of that shift toward clean energy, say, will likely come from a lot of funding from outside of the country. And it certainly does open up an opportunity to have access or installation, say, of wind and solar, oftentimes which actually is cheaper than installation of a coal plant or diesel use at the household level. And currently about half of the population in sub-Saharan Africa, mainly in rural areas, are currently without access to any electricity. So the idea of the ability to help people access energy, which is a pathway toward better education and healthcare, and storage of food, that is a huge benefit for people, and it also it bypasses or it skips past the need for dependence on coal and oil. One last thing too about innovation I think it's really great that there are a lot of questions here on food and agriculture and forestry, because where a lot of innovation is needed is across all of those areas. So on electricity, on transportation, industry, agriculture and buildings. And there's currently much less innovation or acceleration of adoption of solutions in the area of agriculture and industry. Like in industry, some of the biggest impacts on our climate are from producing cement and steel. So those are like two items that right now we currently don't have a lot of solutions on how to bring emissions from those all the way down to zero. So there's an opportunity there. There's a huge demand for both of those products around the world. And that's where a ton of innovation is needed. I said that was the last thing, but I'll say one more thing, sorry, is that what it's also important to, is to look at that, all of us as individuals and companies and countries have something about us that makes us special. And so to use our superpowers, like whatever you are good at doing as it relates to our climate, is focus on that and share it with others and advocate for a broader change, either in terms of policy, innovation, or finance.
All right, thank you very much, Paul, for answering the question. And I know quite a number of you guys have a lot of question, and this is very exciting actually to have a lot of the chat box actually very active and very alive. Now I know we're at the top of the hour right now. So let me just quickly summarize what everybody, what both of the speakers have shared earlier just now. Again, I believe, okay, let me just pull up my points right here. There's a lot of points, I can tell you that. Okay, so let me bring it up first. So from Edwin, I think one of the few things that we could summarize here is that the main software changes definitely comes from the rapid development of population technology. Again, there requires a lot of monitoring and reviewing, and it doesn't just come well, it has to come from various aspects of the industry as well, and from various group of demographics as well here. But here in this case, you also mentioned a bit about 3 periods of basically God-created nature, man-made nature, and future period, and where or what are we basically looking at this moment, So again, those are very excellent studies and a lot of research. I hope you guys can take the time to get the link from Advent and really read up on that part. Very exciting things right there. Paul also voiced out quite a few things right here. Basically, well, what we eat has an impact to our environment. I mean, we would normally take that very lightly, but again, no, we gotta definitely make the change, and the change has to come from us. So, I mean, I definitely want to thank both of the speakers for this opportunity as well. And one of the few final points that I want to highlight from Paul is that taking action, basically got to make changes in your personal life and talk with others what you're doing. That's a very good point right there. And of course, when you want to start to advocate in the case of making a change to the environment, advocate for broader change. It could be in the aspect of social, political, and financial. But I think just to conclude, technology plays an important role, and to look towards mitigation, it has to echo. Again, there's a lot of initiatives that's already been done. We don't have to recreate the wheel. Again, we have to echo what's already been done and support from there. Funding is also very crucial. It has a very important role. It can be taken on by the government or any other organization that would not support. I think we could start from various levels, perhaps maybe from a household level as well. So again, I know that I may not be able to answer or give the opportunity to everyone. I saw the chat box. I just want to quickly give in a bit of opportunity to say hi to my Bruneian counterparts as well. You guys are very active right there. So I hope to see a lot of changes from there onwards as well, and hope to see you guys soon. But of course, I wanna end this evening basically to thank everybody for being here. Once again, thank you very much to all the committee. Want to thank the US Embassy. Want to thank YCL official as well. Of course, the committee at the YCL Summit, Biji-biji, Marika, and of course, Big Pagawan for being part of this. But of course, this cannot happen without the contribution from both of our speakers, Edwin and of course, Paul. Once again, good morning, Paul, and of course, good evening to everybody right here. Also want to say good evening to everybody, and I hope you guys stay safe and enjoy your time and be safe. I mean, that's very important, right? I'm just repeating myself right here. But okay, so I'm not hungry. I know it's already 9 here and in Brunei, but I want to say once again, thank you very much to all the participants. You guys have been lovely. You guys have been great. Hope to see you guys soon. And please, once again, want to pass this over back to Lestrina. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Afiq. Yeah, thank you for summarizing the session for business model to support climate change mitigation. I think before we go to the announcements, let's take a group shot first to capture the moment. So while everyone puts themselves on camera, please feel free to do emoji reactions or put a +1 in the Zoom chat box to express our thanks to our speakers and moderator tonight. All right, so Isha, can you help us?
Yep. Countdowner. Okay, everybody smile at the camera. 3, 2, and 1. All right, one more. 3, 2, and 1. All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you, Isha. And for our moderator and Prof. Edwin, please feel free to step out of our Zoom room while we do the administrative announcements for our participants. Thank you so much. All right, so on screen for our participants. Okay, so next session will be on Saturday, right? This Saturday at 10 a.m. on Gather Town. So if you click next, so this week, the Tech Showcase Week focuses on transportation and electrification. And with us, again, we have two companies, Souls Energy and Sustaino. Next slide, please. All right, so very quick information in terms of the company profile. It's really up on House Space, so please have a read on that. For now, we'd like to highlight to you in terms of the impact of their work. So these are some numbers that we'd like to highlight to you and maybe put out the question in terms of how might you, with whatever you're doing now, support or contribute to these kinds of companies so that you'll have an impact at the community level at that scale as well. Next on Sustaino. All right, so Sustaino, so you can see the whole list of their products and offering, similar to what we encourage you to think about with Souls Energy as well, is to think about, in terms of your business and commercialization, what are some of the business models or ideas you might want to explore should you want to build up your company one day. Next slide. All right, so the tech showcase, as usual, will happen on Gather Town, and then we'll have like a short break, and then everyone moves into Zoom. So on Zoom, we'll have a virtual tour of Sumbiling Eco Village, which is in Brunei. So on this, everyone, we cannot be in Brunei this time round, but we're proud to bring you on a virtual tour there. Our local partner, Fisha, went on a journey and helped us document the whole trip to SEV. We'll also have the managing director, Leslie Chiang, with us that day to do a short Q&A. So if you have questions on Eco Village or Brunei and natural biodiversity, please do ask Leslie questions on Saturday noon. Okay, so this is like beyond the Saturday sessions, right? We're at this point, we're already midway through the summit portion of the entire program. And we'd like to remind everyone that in order for us to graduate from the Wisely Summit program, we need to meet this requirement of 36 hours, right? And this 36 hours can come from you attending all the virtual sessions or the offline sessions. And if you look through your whole list, your offline sessions so far, I think a lot of people have been doing the eco challenges as well as reading assignments. Do remember that there's also the volunteering activity as well as the vlogging activity. So just doing your offline events alone can give you 14 hours. And so that technically reduces your need to attend the webinar hours if you're not able to. So on this, we'll encourage you to please go to your house space page and then look out for the tab participation hours. Check out what your current hours are and see how you can try to bring it up to 36 hours by the end of the program. So on this, we'll give you some time to explore this on your own, right? But the best suggestion is moving forward. Please continue to join us in our online sessions as we go ahead, not just June itself, but also till November. All right. On this, can we also have the project team to maybe put in the links here? Thank you, Jordan. So as shared, every Monday we have a newsletter that goes out, right? And in this newsletter, the top portion has a survey to ask you your feedback and observations from the week, like the previous sessions. So on this, please check out those links and help us with the survey questions we have for week 1 and 2. Week 3 is coming this Monday, so there'll be another set of questions. So we'll really appreciate it if you can help us complete the existing surveys and improve our remaining sessions the next 2 weeks. All right. So this is specifically for the groups who applied for the small grants track. There's 10 groups. Just a gentle reminder that your deadline is coming up on Monday, June 20th. So please make sure that you submit your pitching deck and presentation recording in your individual respective team folders. So by now, everyone should have access to your team folders already. Make sure you have your completed deck up by Monday. All right, so yep, that's the end of our announcements. Everyone, as usual, please feel free to hang out at Summit Town after this session. Please go and just make friends and socialize and try to connect with each other as much as you can. And yeah, with that, we end tonight's session, everyone. Please have a good rest and have a good weekend.